So, we're back, or rather, I am back from my own Christmas holidays because I've been gone for about a week from the podcast. And I'm sure you guys can hear the difference. I'm sure it's noticeable that I'm getting a lot better. And for that, I'm thankful and I'm really grateful. Now, apart from my improving health, there's a lot that I have to be grateful for over the year, and that's part of what I'm going to do on the podcast to say some of the stuff that I'm thankful for, especially the things that are podcast related. And that's because for those of you who've been with me from the get, it's been close to a 2 year journey so far. I'll have to confirm the date, but I think it'll be March of next year that should make 2 years of recording the podcast. And so, with that, that's the reason why I've taken to bragging from time to time on the podcast that I'm probably Nigeria's longest running business podcast, because I come across lots of podcasts, really good business podcasts, but then they put out a few episodes, 5, 10, and then they disappear. But we've been at this now for close to 2 years. For those of you who've been with me from the beginning, I'd like to say thank you very much for hanging in there for the 2 year journey. I appreciate your time and your attention. I do not take it for granted. And so, as we're wrapping up 2021, this is currently the 30th of December 2021. As we're wrapping up this year, I will continue with my commitment to make sure that I'm giving you guys tidbits, tips and tricks, and also exposing, for those of you who are not aware, exposing you guys to the wonderful world of conversation frameworks and sales frameworks that are out there, which will make our job a lot easier of converting people into customers when we get them in, online, or we meet them at trade shows or wherever it is that we get to run into them. So so I think that's the first thing I'm thankful for, that we've been at this consistently for 2 years. And so I'd like to say thank you to those of you who have been with me along for the ride from day one. We've made progress because this year we've gone over 2,600 downloads, and that's 270 episodes so far. So apart from boasting that I'm Nigeria's longest running business podcast, I also boast that I have the most number of episodes, for now anyway. But then again, if there are any of you gentle listeners who have come across any Nigerian business podcast that has been going on, for 3 years or more, or with more episodes, please let me know, so that I will not be guilty of making a false brag. And also, if they've been going on for such a long time and they have a viable audience, then it'll be nice for me to listen and learn along, because I also keep an ear out for useful resources that I can learn and I can grow from and that I can share as well. So so that's the progress that we've made. 2,600 downloads. We have doubled the number of listeners from the first year, and let's see what else. Yeah, so that's the progress that we've made with the podcast. I also like to say thanks to you listeners as a group and individually. I know a few of you because of some of you who have known me prior to this, and you listen to the podcast, and for that I say thanks. And for those of you who are new listeners that I happen to bump into every now and then, I also like to say thanks. And for those of you who reach out, send messages on Instagram or WhatsApp. Okay, we've only had one message on WhatsApp and one audio message, and then the rest has been on the gram. And so thank you very much for that. But then, as a group, I'd like to say thank you to the listeners from different countries, because this podcast is titled Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry. And at the time I started the podcast, my assumption was that most of my listeners would be Nigerians. But from the analytics that I've gotten on the platform, it looks like we have listeners from loads of countries. I'm not going to assume that all the countries that we have on the list. I'm not going to assume that because we have all these countries that it means these people are largely Nigerians in diaspora. So I'm going to assume that we have loads of foreigners listening to the podcast. And for that, I'd like to say thank you very much for listening. So for my listeners in America, Nigeria, Germany, UK, and Russia, Okay, and then Netherlands and Canada together. With these countries together with Ireland, you guys make up more than 80% of the people who listen to the podcast. So thank you very much to the American listeners, Nigerians, Germans, UK, the Russians, Netherlands, Canada, Ireland. Also to the listeners that I have in Saudi Arabia, Spain, Egypt, Mali, Brazil, Switzerland, Lebanon. That one caught me by surprise. Mozambique, Croatia. That caught me by surprise as well. South Africa, and on and on. So there's still a couple more countries, and especially countries at the bottom of the list that make up less than 1% of the listenership of the podcast. But either way, I'm still grateful that you guys have found the podcast and you have kept listening so far, and that you have found stuff valuable, because if you didn't, you wouldn't be here. So thank you very much for listening. I'm aware that before I took off for my unscheduled Christmas break, that we cut off mid conversation. So at tomorrow's recording, we'll take it up from there, where I'll have to look for my little sheet where I write down all my questions. So once I find that, we'll be able to pick off exactly from where it is that we left off. But today's episode is just to say thank you very much, guys, for being with me for 2 years so far. And also, it's my prayer that heading into this new year in 2022, because we'll be clocking in a new year in a couple of days. Today's the 30th, so we should be celebrating the new year in 2 days. So it's my prayer that we're going to be able to grow both personally and professionally in whatever our endeavors are heading into 2022. So thank you very much, guys, for listening. I'm looking forward to continuing this relationship with you guys. So thanks for your time and attention. I've been your host, as always, Abuja-based sales consultant and event media professional, Tavishima Ayide. Thanking you for your time and your attention, and I'll catch you guys, as I always do, on the next recording.